So what's happened so far when it comes to VeChain? Well, did you know that recently they made a post indicating how at one point in 3 months, the amount of total VET, which is the primary native token of VeChain, they said that the amount that was locked up grew from around 2.52 billion to 13 billion. Why is this a big deal and what caused this? Well, I'll explain in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, this is purely just my opinion and my perspective. But we have to consider, back in December of last year, VeChain launched Stargate alongside the Hayabusa upgrade, basically. But a lot of people like to say that, wow, nothing kind of happened when it comes to that. But we have to consider, as a result of that, allegedly, in just 3 months, at one point, again, the amount of total VET that was locked up grew from around 2.5 billion to 13 billion approximately. That's pretty impressive. Now, why does having that many locked up matter? Well, it's because I think it gives the project a little bit more stability. I think it gives the project more of this vibe that it is actually, being considered for the long term. And not to mention, if we consider how, for instance, the maximum supply of VET being at almost 87 billion, sure, 13 billion, people like to say, wow, it's not such a big deal. It's not even 50% of that. But still, it's over 10%, and I think it's still a pretty impressive figure nonetheless. Some other projects out there, sure, the ratio is a little bit better, but I think this, if anything, highlights how the Hayabusa upgrade wasn't a total waste. People like to say that VeChain wasted too much resources doing things regarding Stargate and Hayabusa and all this, but I disagree with that. I think that, if anything, it actually is a net positive when it comes to VeChain moving forward. And also, people like to tell me that, wow, why didn't they just hire a celebrity or an athlete or something like that instead of doing, those upgrades? But I think it's a very short-sighted thing if their focus is on just short-term hype. Because if we consider other projects out there in the past that have done those type of things, hired a celebrity to talk about their project or spent big on billboards and stuff like that. Sure, advertising does matter in some cases, but doing it too much when it comes to that and driving it away from their core focus, it's sometimes a little bit of a big mistake, because sometimes we see a lot of these projects do that, but when the market goes down, they get cooked, because that's not really sustainable in some cases. Usually what's more sustainable is putting it back into the project, actually developing it, actually making it better, giving a better use case, and that way it's gonna sometimes help it allow to survive market downturns, to actually have a better fundamental, I guess, use case, in which case allows it to have better adoption moving forward. So I don't think it's a bad thing. The Hayabusa upgrade, Stargate and all this, it may sound kind of lame, some people like to say, but we have to consider the long-term implications. It's not as cool, but I think it's a safer route for them to actually focus on the fundamentals. It's like, for instance, a Toyota Corolla, a Toyota Camry, a Prius. Is it cool? Not really. I mean, the new Prius is pretty cool, though, I'll admit, comparatively speaking to the previous models, but I'm saying still, people would consider, oh, BMW or Mercedes-Benz is cooler. I'm totally aware of that. But what's more reliable? That's the thing. We've seen the reliable track record of the Toyotas. Other brands out there, in some cases, I'm not saying any brand in particular, but I'm saying some other brands out there, they consider it to be a little bit suspect in terms of the reliability. So when we take a look at Toyota, it's boring, but arguably it's cool, some people like to say. There's trade-offs. When it comes to VeChain, it may be considered a little bit boring, being focused on Hayabusa and Stargate and all that, but we have to consider the long-term implications. Other projects out there, they're focused on having a good time, not necessarily being around for a long time. That is just my perspective. So let's take a look at, for instance, VeChain as of right now. People like to say the narrative when it comes to supply chain management is cooked, because VeChain is really focused on that. It's also recently really focused on AI. I don't think that's cooked, but sometimes people like to say that when it comes to supply chain management, they think it's really cooked. But we have to consider this. If, let's say, the supply chain management, I guess, narrative were to kick back in again when it comes to this space, what do people usually think about? They usually think about VeChain when it comes to that niche. So when it comes to that niche, VeChain has a pretty amazing stronghold within that. So it's not like VeChain is necessarily focused on such a bad market. It's actually arguably the most popular within the niche that it's focused on. Even though that niche in particular isn't necessarily the coolest, sometimes narratives do form during a hypothetical altcoin season, in which case, if for whatever reason people find projects that are focused on supply chain management to be the next big thing for whatever reason, VeChain is kind of waiting right there. It doesn't mean it will see any of that action, but I'm just saying it's waiting literally right there. Some other projects out there, they're focused on a more cool and interesting niche, but inherently there's a lot of competitors. When it comes to VeChain, more focused on a boring niche, but less competitors. So it's a trade-off right there. It's like a Toyota versus a Lamborghini. That's the thing. However, there's, again, different factors for both, but I don't mind when it comes to VeChain because, again, I like its popularity within its own niche, not to mention its recent emphasis, at least kind of them talking a lot more when it comes to AI. I think that's a genius move. It gives VeChain more of another pathway and avenue to kind of achieving popularity and notoriety, because if they're so focused on supply chain management, I still think that's awesome, but why not focus on AI as well? In which case we are seeing that when it comes to VeChain. And not to mention, the VeChain Thor blockchain, speaking of Toyotas, the VeChain Thor blockchain does remind me of a Toyota, because ever since 2018, zero network outages when it comes to the VeChain Thor blockchain. Pretty impressive. Kind of reminds me of a Toyota Camry, actually. But besides that point, other blockchains out there, they're more cool, they're more fun. But if they have network outages, for what? It's like, for instance, buying a very amazing sports car, but then it breaks down every 5,000 miles. For what? No, thank you. I don't want that. I'd rather take the Toyota, personally, for me. But I'm just saying, when it comes to VeChain, people also like to say, but the market cap is still under 600 million. That is true. But one thing I do like is dips. That's the thing. I don't only like it in the gym. I don't only like it when it comes to my French fries, when it comes to ranch dressing, but I also like the dip when it comes to the space. That's the thing. I like the dips, if that makes sense, because it may seem counterintuitive, but if we consider some of the legends when it comes to the space of stocks, like Warren Buffett, for instance, he has historically showcased that he likes dips. And am I saying he's going to be right 100% of the time? Not necessarily. I mean, we're talking about Warren Buffett, who not too long ago doubled down on newspapers when a lot of people were leaving. So that's a case of believing in the dip, maybe, but in not the right area. But you know what? We have to consider his overall track record, right, of caring about the dip, so to speak, like in the case of Apple stocks and Coca-Cola and whatnot. So again, we have to take a look at the historical track record, and usually being focused on the dip isn't typically such a bad thing. We've seen when it comes to Warren Buffett. When it comes to the space, I view it a little bit no different for me. So yes, a project being low may be kind of a bad thing, depending on how you take a look at it. But for me, I don't mind, because I am looking to dollar cost average, right? So if things are low, I'm just, if anything, bringing my average down, which I don't think is such a, again, negative thing for me, because what happens if it were to recover, right? I don't know if I would be so disappointed at that point if I was caring about the dip, if it were to recover. But that's a big if. We'll wait and see. But I'm saying, even if we take a look at VeChain, let's say back in, let's take a look at December 2024. We're taking a look at a market cap at that point of around 5.3 billion. So VeChain is almost 10 times lower than that. Kind of ridiculous. If, let's say, Ethereum was almost 10 times lower than its all-time high, or let's say Bitcoin was almost 10 times lower than its all-time high, I know a lot of my friends out there that would be celebrating. But they're not celebrating quite necessarily because they're happy it's like doing so bad like that, in a sense where they want to see it go down. That's not necessarily the case, but they would be happy for hypothetical dollar cost averaging reasons. I know some of my friends out there that would be happy when it comes to that. So it's more of a positive celebration and not a negative one. But if I take that same principle and I kind of apply it to the projects that I'm a fan of, like for instance, in this case, hypothetically VeChain, I kind of view it no different. My friends out there, they like it if it's a dip when it comes to Bitcoin, but I kind of like it when it comes to this. Now, I don't only hold this, but I'm just saying, Michael Saylor, he's happy when Bitcoin has a dip in some cases. I kind of view it no different. but it's just for a completely different project. That's the thing. Bitcoin, of course, a lot of people care about that, but VeChain, and in particular, its primary native token called VET, it's an altcoin. So it's a little bit different, but you know what? Same, but different, as they say. I don't know. Is that even a saying? Same, but different? But I don't know. I just randomly made up a new statement. Maybe, who knows? I'm not too sure. But besides that, when I take a look at VeChain, still waiting as of right now, but there's something else I can do. I'm only dollar cost averaging once a month. I don't want to do any more than that, but yeah, that's about it currently. I just thought it was pretty impressive because people like to ask me, oh, what's happened when it comes to VeChain? Well, we have to take a look at the statistics. I can't control the price charts. What can I do? Do some Harry Potter stuff and make it do this and do that? No, I can't do that. I can't control the market. I can't do anything when it comes to the market. What am I going to do? Pull up a price chart, draw a random triangle? That's not going to do anything for me. You think the market's randomly going to be like, oh, wow, Lee the captain said this is going to happen at that time? Oh, wow, let's care about that. No, like the market doesn't operate in that way. It's not going to care whatever I draw. So what is going to happen if I draw a random triangle, if I draw a falling wedge pattern? It doesn't really matter. I mean, at that point, it just looks cool. It's like me drawing, basically. I'm just going to focus on the fundamentals, and that's pretty much about it. So yeah, I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward, if there are any, when it comes to VeChain. So hopefully you all stay tuned for that. But most importantly, I want to say thank you so much for watching today's video. I greatly appreciate that as well. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. It's Lee the captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.